anytime, and it didn't depend on a momentary enthusiasm. It drew upon much deeper commitments, deeper energies. So from a political point of view, a sociological point of view, you might get very excited by crowd effervescence, but if you're really trying to build nonviolence, you should be somewhat suspicious of it. Matthias. Spinning means to take something off. Oh, spinning. No, that was a different kind of spin. Spinning cotton. Anybody could spin cotton. Quetschen am Spinnrad. Meine Uhr ist hin, mein Herz ist schwer. Okay. Yes. I should stop going Goethe. It's really getting embarrassing. John. Monkey wrenching. That is something which, again, we were just about to get to. Didn't quite get there. It's a good thing to know about it. It's a good thing to know about. Has anybody been involved with a group that's considering should we to monkey wrench or not to monkey wrench? That is the question. It comes from an English language idiom to throw a monkey wrench into the works, which means it's like sabotage. And in particular, it has come up in the environmental movements where in their intense frustration and in their anger against machinery, people have blocked the operations of certain machines. If we get to it, and we will get to it either today or after the spring break, we're going to show how this issue was dealt with in conjunction with the reforestation movement of Earth First. It leads to, I mean, in A we talked about this to some degree. It's basically property destruction. And like all forms of property destruction, it's a very weak way to change anybody's mind. So it is definitely in the area of coercion, not of persuasion. And so it's not something that we want to rely on. And if it's really damaging, we don't even want to do it if we are trying to be a principled nonviolent movement. Okay? What else? Yes, Sarah. Droit d'ingérence? Yeah. That's a good one. Suppose you had that on the exam. And you would get it translated so. This being an American university, droit d'ingérence. What's the definition, first of all? Pardon? Let's go to that first. Qu'est-ce que c'est que le droit d'ingérence? ¿Qué es el derecho de, how do you say intervene? I'm sorry, I'm sidetracking us. I'll tell you later. What is it? What is this thing? Yes, Cynthia. Good. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That was excellent. So Sethi started by saying it is a concept in international law. I would say that's not a concept which is enshrined in international law. You will not find, you can go to The Hague and you will not find droit d'ingérence written into law, but I don't think it's part of the Geneva Protocols or anything, but it's a concept that individuals, I don't say they're required, but at least that they have the right to intervene in a state if that state's apparatus has failed to protect its own people at a very basic level. Yeah. Amy? Responsibility to protect, yeah. Yes. Has to pick up that responsibility, right. If a state fails, like when the new Serbian state was driving out the Albanians from the Kosovo region, that was regarded as a failure of the Serbian state to protect its own population, and there was a right then to intervene and do something about that. Not necessarily to bomb them for 78 days, but that's with the poverty of imagination, that's all they came up with. Okay, I don't know whom to attribute this to, contextualize it. I suppose you could say it's a part of the growing body of peace law, but to evaluate it is important. Why is this important for us in peace development today? Nick, did you want to? I didn't quite catch the end. Yeah, that. Well, what you're talking about, I think, would get us into what we sometimes call peace imperialism, where you go into a country on a pretext of protection, and in effect, the Indian Raj was in India for that reason, because the final pretext that they had after they ran out of the lesser breed without the law, Rudyard Kipling pretext, that we're bringing you civilization, the pretext they had was that if we pull out, what's going to happen between Hindus and Muslims? Not mentioning that it was they who had driven the two communities apart. But now you're talking about how it could be abused, but I'm thinking of, if not abused, if properly understood, why is it so important for us? Zoe? Right, right. Yeah, there's two answers to the question, a minor one and a major one, and Zoe is giving us a major one, that it is a reflection of the most basic underlying principle of principled nonviolence, which is the sanctity of the individual, if I want to use that term. That the sanctity of the individual trumps the authority of the state. I'm going to put it that way. That occurred to me in the desert this weekend. Hope you like it. Because the state has more people in it than an individual has, there is this tendency to think that the state is much more important than any person, and it has eminent domain, it can make you sell them your house and stuff like that. But at a point where the state fails in a conspicuous way, we have to go in to assert the value and importance of the individual against any collective. That's the most important reason. The minor reason is that unless we have this right, we cannot do third-party nonviolent intervention, and then Nagel's favorite form of peacekeeping is no longer possible. Okay, good. Yes, Michael? Droit means right, and ingérer means to intervene, to interpose oneself. So it's the right of intervening. Does anyone actually know French? Does it have a circumflex? It doesn't. That's okay? Okay, good. I think, yeah. And this is going out all over the world, so the whole European Union is going to be seeing this. We're not just these provincial Americans who don't know anything. Yes, Robbie?
Do you think it's important to attribute how the person of the date?
Only in some cases. For an ID, only in some cases. But if you're talking about an event in your essay question, obviously you do want to know approximately when it happened and what was the outcome. Yeah. Okay? Alex? Yes. I can talk about the power of vulnerability. I'm not sure I can talk about it cogently. It's something a little difficult to define. I did use the Deer King story, A, because it's one of my favorite stories, and B, because it illustrates this pretty well. But when we first heard it in this course was in the film Where There's Hatred, it was a young Catholic priest up in the mountains in the Philippines talking about how the people decided that they had to use their vulnerability. He's saying, remember, we have to figure out how to turn our vulnerability into a weapon. I don't know if he used the term weapon. Maybe he said into a force or an implement or something like that. It's a startling idea. It's kind of meant to turn our thinking on its head, which is good, and to get us to think that the power to dominate or to threaten or to harm is one kind of power, but we really miss the essence of what it means to be human if we think that's the only kind of power that we have, and that there's another kind of power which is an appeal to integrate. That's integrative power, and connected with that, there is the power of vulnerability. Now, as a principle, it has been used way, way back in animal behavior. You know, if you see an alpha male dog ganging up on a beta male dog or beta female dog, you don't say beta male dog, it'll make a better story. The beta male dog will do something that caninologists call going puppy. It will lie on its back and put its paws up in the air and say, I'm helpless, and it might even pee, you know, to show that it's just totally, it's a baby, it needs your protection. And what that accomplishes is it presses a different button inside Mr. Alfie, whatever the name of the alpha male dog is, and instead of thinking of the beta dog as a potential rival or a victim, he thinks of that dog as a subject that needs care. Now, in human beings, this dynamic is still built in there, and there's no harm in appealing to it, but, you know, within reason, we have to realize we're human beings. If I'm on a demonstration, and if someone starts beating me up, I am not going to lie on my back and wave my paws in the air, much less any of the other stuff. So, but I think it's important for us to realize that, indeed, you can change people by laying down your capacity to harm them, deliberately laying it down. Not saying, please don't hurt me, I don't have a way to defend myself, but saying, here's my gun, okay? I'm putting it down on the table. I'm not going to use it. Go ahead, do what you want. If you saw Hotel Rwanda, there's a very, very moving scene that I think we might almost try and get a clip of for our DVD, Andrea, where our hero, Paul Rusagabene, he is the Hutu general is pointing a pistol at him. Paul just said something very threatening to him, and instead of trying to knock the gun out of his hand or something, he said, go ahead and kill me, it would be a blessing. And the guy immediately puts his gun down. I have a friend who, I think I told you the story, had to disarm a child soldier in Rwanda, and he had a sidearm, and he decided not to use it. He just walked up to this boy without taking his gun out of the holster. So these are all examples that somehow by not being threatening, and even further than that, rendering yourself open to the threat of the opponent, you can change that opponent. Yes, Artie?
I know that graph is about insurrectionary movements, but would you have to be on the edge of that graph, like willing to risk your life to do that?
Actually, that escalation curve that you're referring to is not only about insurrectionary movements. It's about any kind of oppositional movement. And I suppose what we're talking about is stage 3. If the opponent actually can kill you, then if you want to use your vulnerability as a mechanism for changing the situation, you are risking your life. You've got to be willing to lay it down. Let me hasten to add, the power of vulnerability doesn't always, quote, work, unquote. You know, don't come back here with a black eye from the vigil and tell me, Nagler, you got me into this. I'm not saying that it always works. There are also other kinds of power that are in the mix, and we have to know when to use which. We have to have the right expectations about what are we going to say if it doesn't get us what we want, if it doesn't protect us. And incidentally, I have found that if you demand of nonviolence that absolute protection, you'll never get to understand what nonviolence is. There was a person at that Jesuit meeting a couple weeks ago, remember, he said 98% of the people will not attack you, but 2% will. It's the wrong way to approach nonviolence. So what are we saying? There is something called the power of vulnerability. We are not saying that it trumps all other kinds of power immediately in any situation. Okay, good to know that. Catherine? About? Oh, okay. Is he on your list? I'm sorry. He's actually a holdover from A. But since you brought it up, aside from the fact that there is a lovely river in Holland called the Waal, and he's from that area, so he's Frank from the Waal. What was his importance? Just very briefly, so you might as well know it. He's an important guy. Yeah. Reconciliation in primates. Yeah, and generally speaking, the fact that primate nature, which we have inherited on one level, is not simply red in tooth and claw. It's not just aggression. He's the guy who told the story about those 2 chimpanzees who were locked out of their cage in the Chicago Zoo, and a terrible rainstorm came up. It was bitter cold, the rain was sloshing down, and 2 of the chimps had been locked out of the cage by mistake. So he found the owner, or keeper, I guess, and they went over there and opened the cage to let the chimps in. And the chimps are freezing and getting soaking wet. They want to dive into the cage. But before they did that, they each gave each of these guys a big hug. Isn't that nice? Because, of course, being hugged by a wet chimpanzee is not my favorite reward, but I mean, you know, on the spiritual level, it is something, you know. It shows some form of recognition. Okay. Those things are about 40 to 50 times stronger than a human being, too, so a hug from a chimp can be dangerous, but I think we get the point. Okay, we have a few more minutes. If there's anything else, maybe stuff that you came across in the reader that we didn't talk about, and you want to know, is this fair game or not fair game? How much do you have to know about it? Just go ahead and ask me. Yes? Okay, Adam is asking about a movement which we were to have gotten to, but didn't quite. And it's the movement of landless workers, so I think I will declare it off bounds for now. It'll definitely come up on the final. It's a huge social movement in Brazil. Yes? Yeah, that came up, yeah. And you have to, you know, define it, tell why it was important, stuff like that, yeah. Right, so anything that was in our section of the reader will be possible. Okay? Yeah, Howard. It's in the reader, yeah. Does anybody want to, like, in 60 seconds, tell us what happened there, how to characterize it, why it's important? Famous sauce comes from that region, we all know that. Okay, what was the issue? We're going to have a lot of reading to do between now and Thursday. Yeah, Carrie? Yeah. 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 Yes, well, that's true. Yeah. Yep. 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 You're close, Carrie. That's pretty good. What set it up was very much this kind of thing. In Mexico, there is a national oil industry, Pemex, and so they didn't have to make any arrangements. They were all the same animal, and they decided to go. There was offshore oil, and this is a region of Mexico where there's a lot of wetlands. People were fishing, and agriculture is basically their income. Pemex came in, did this huge extraction, pumped out oil, gave nobody in the region any money for all of those resources. It's very much like what's happening in Nigeria today, southern Nigeria, and left the place absolutely devastated. And the people of Tabasco decided that they would protest this nonviolently. Again, there was kind of a leader who came from, I think, from Mexico City. His name was Rafael Landareche, who knew how to do this, and he was kind of their Sunderlal Bahuguna. And they said, we are going to be a buffer in between Chiapas and the rest of Mexico. In Chiapas, you had armed insurrection. In Tabasco, we're going to have unarmed insurrection. So it was almost by the numbers, by the rules, pretty well organized and carried out. Yes, there was voter fraud. As where is there not? Don't look at us. Yes, Marcelo. Yeah. Well, the concept of going from poverty to destitution, if it were to show up, and I don't think it will, you would attribute it to a sociologist, Gore, Robert Gore. It was his term. And what he said was, if people are suffering poverty, they can take it quite a bit, and it can actually go on indefinitely. But if the poverty increases, or if you make it increase to destitution, meaning they can no longer live, their children are getting deformed, they're dying of malnutrition and all that, then they have nothing, there's nothing holding them back anymore. So they are going to rebel. So the name of the book where this comes up is Why Men Rebel. Ted Gore, his name, Why Men Rebel. It's just an issue for us because that's where a lot of nonviolent movements get started among quiescent populations. I think that's the name of the book. Yeah. He didn't know that women also rebelled, I guess. I guess we're out of time. Oh yes, bring a blue book by all means. In fact, bring 2 blue books in case the person next to you forgot.